Hey, welcome back to the Oz Shift podcast. I'm your host, Anthony Trucks. Today, we have Mark Drager on the show. Now, Mark Drager is actually the individual that helped create the brand personality behind Dark Work. And it's not just an episode about all the stuff of the brand, but it's actually about the humanity, the life behind the scenes. How do you develop something you love and do more of what you love? And if you're in business, how do you elevate your value to make business great? And if you're an employee, how do you elevate your value to make yourself happier in your career and your people that you work with happier and make you more money maybe? But it all dials into this concept of the brand and what's called the sales loop. And he talks about it towards the back end of the podcast. But if you want to find out the journey of someone who's worked with 3,000 different projects and 300 different companies, made millions of dollars in business, but also the human behind the scenes and what it takes to get there, today's an episode for you. So lock in, tune in, make sure that you, at the end of the episode, find out how you can find out more about what it is he does, because he's done a great job of my company, and I'm excited to bring him to the episode to share with you today. So that's it. Without further ado, let's get into the episode. Hey, welcome back to the Oz Shift podcast. We're in the show. We're here with I'm going to say this friend, Mark Drager.
Oh,
Hey,
wow.
sometimes I go like my new friend, this person I just met. Like, nah, we spend time together, folks. You're going to find out about that here pretty soon. I want to have Mark on the show because Mark does some dope things the world needs to know more about. So if I can be a vehicle to do that, I'm looking forward to doing it. So hop into the show. You guys know the first question. I'm going to ask it. Maybe you know, Mark. I don't know if you know. Here's the first question. I'm walking around town in Canada and somebody says, "Oh, I'm sorry," because they do that. And I sit down at a coffee shop. You didn't get the joke. It's okay.
No, I got the joke. I was just on mute because I'm such a professional podcaster.
So I'm walking. I sit at a coffee shop. This beautiful bald man, you is sitting there looking at me for I don't know why. And you go, "Hey," and you start talking to me. In your personal opinion, why should I listen to you?
Why should you listen to me? I don't think that I have see, this is such a Canadian answer. I don't think I have the ego to suggest that you should listen to me.
Let's say
I don't think that any of us are entitled to have people listen to us. So what I would immediately do is I would want to know more about you.
Right.
Why are you here? Why are you in Canada? Why are you at the Tim Hortons with me?
There you go.
You know, when I held the door open and we had the Canadian standoff and I'm holding the door for you and you're saying after you and I'm saying, no, after you and no, after you. And we're both saying sorry, as you said, and we're both apologizing to one another. And then we go in line. I would never lead the conversation with what you should know about me, because frankly, I don't know much about you and I want to know who you are. I want to know what your challenges are. I want to know, and this is the marketer in me, I want to know where you need help so that way I can tailor my response and make sure that I show up being the person you need me to be.
I dig it. So let's say that we were in a situation.
Was that me sidestepping the question?
I would probably say 60% of people say the same thing. Those who have been in a position like you have of service, you understand that it's like, it's not about me just butting in saying, look how awesome I am. It's of being value, and you can't be of value unless you know what the value might be to somebody. So I totally get that. Let's say somebody sits down and they go, hey, you overhear a conversation. They're talking to their friend, man, I'm trying to get this thing moving. I got this idea, I got this vision, I got this, but I just don't know how. And you overhear that and you go, should I jump in? You double dutch it in your mind and you go, yeah, I'm going to. And then you decide, let's say you decide to start talking to this person because you heard a conversation. Why should somebody listen to an individual like you in that situation?
Well, now I would be willing to jump in. And so if you want like the highlights, I started my agency when I was 23 years old. So just imagine this, 23, I went to a technical school. I worked in franchising and business and internet marketing for a few years. I marry my high school sweetheart, my wife, Jacqueline, and we have our first daughter. And the week that my daughter is born, I decide this is the perfect time. My wife's not working. This is the perfect time for me to quit my job, my $40,000 a year job, and I'm going to go start an agency. So why should you listen to me? Well, in this case, the fact that I have like close to 2 decades of experience. The agency that I built very slowly through multiple recessions grew to a multi-million-dollar agency. We've worked on a few thousand projects. I like to say 3,000. It's actually more than that, but we've worked on more than 3,000 projects for more than 300 different companies in 29 industries. And we've produced about $14 million in creative work for people. And so that is kind of what I would lead with if I wanted to give my quick resume.
I like it.
How's that, man?
I can't say I've done that. It's beautiful. And that's kind of a fun thing for me is unpack all that. I'm going to do this. We're going to Quentin Tarantino it. You know what Tarantino does? He starts the beginning of the end, right? And then he comes back to the very beginning.
Yeah. And I talk so fast that people often, no one confuses me for Tarantino, but I talk too quick.
I think I talk fast enough for people who listen to me to know that I talk fast. I actually on stage, I say it. I say, hey, as we're going through this, just so you know, I'm not talking fast. You're listening slowly. And I have to pause. And then the audience laughs. And then I go, let's go to work. Every time, I kid you not. That's what I do.
Well, then between you and I would like to say for all the listeners, this is the challenge. I don't think you should be listening to this episode at 1.5 or 2 times speed. I think you're going to have to slow this down to 100% just to be able to keep up with us.
I'll try to talk slower. I think podcast wise, I sometimes do talk slower because I'm not in like that. I'm on, hey, everybody, Anthony Trucks here. Like I slow it down, but even then, it's still somewhere. Speed is interesting. But so here's the thing. I know you've had all the success, right? But that comes from somewhere. And I know that a lot of individuals are not, born into being like an entrepreneur. I don't know if their parents or your parents were, some people's situation, but it's all different. And they find themselves, like I do, find myself in this realm where, like, if you go trickle it back to my beginnings, 100% there's no thread that goes. You can logically see, like, statistically, that guy's going to be on stage speaking on podcast, and that's not going to make a line. So how did we get it for you? What was life like? How did it build into this? Like, how did you get to this situation you're in now?
Yeah, it's funny. I went to film school. I went, just let that sit in for a second. I went to film school because I wanted to be a filmmaker. I wanted to be an editor. But slightly before that, I actually wanted to be an architect. So I grew up in a family of builders, building high-rise apartments and building residential communities and just a family of builders. And so it was very easy and safe for me to say, I want to become an architect and an engineer. And everyone in my family was like, yeah, that's awesome. And then right before applying for colleges and university, I got scared. I got scared because for the first time ever, I was struggling in chemistry. And I thought, if I can't do chemistry, like everything was coming easy to me. If I'm getting a C in chemistry, how am I going to do algebra geometry? How am I going to do this? How am I going to do that? How am I going to become an engineer? And I got so scared that I went to film school instead, simply because I thought it would be easier. I ran away from the hard thing because I thought it would be easier to just pursue this other thing.
I get that.
And so
I get it. I think I fully understand that. It's funny. It's like, I love geometry, not geometry, but chemistry. Actually, stoichiometry is my favorite subject in all of school. I don't know why, which I don't think most would hear that, especially a former football guy talking about it. And so I can see the idea when you get daunted, like something's daunting to you, it makes you adjust things. So we're in a situation, you get school and you just to go to film school. Then how the hell did we get here? Why aren't you making movies, bro?
Yeah. Weird how life works that way. So I go and take an 18-month technical course. So right after high school, I'm graduated, I'm done. I managed to get some internships. So I work at our local national broadcaster, and I become a teleprompter operator and a camera operator in television because I think that's my path. And then I find out this is going to take 10 years. That's what everyone said, all the old timers. It's going to take 10 years to establish yourself as a freelancer. And I thought, what the hell? I don't want to spend 10 years just to be able to make enough money to pay for a mortgage. So I went into sales, not realizing I was going into sales, but I went into sales for a little bit, hated it, and found myself working finally at an internet marketing franchise. So I got a job at this head office in Toronto, Canada, where I'm from. And there we had 1,500 offices in 90 countries and territories. And this is back in 2005. Okay. So what I didn't realize I was entering into was for me to understand how to create communications videos and education videos and training videos and franchise development marketing videos and everything that a franchisor needs to be able to do to sell franchises, to be able to communicate, to run their conferences, to run franchisee communications. But then on top of that, I had to learn everything that each franchisee does and are responsible for. It was the greatest business school I could ever attend.
I get it.
It took me 5 days after I got the job. It took me 5 days to understand what the hell anyone was talking about. Because the way the system worked is, and I don't want to get too much into the business side of things, but the way the system worked is I worked for the franchisor. I didn't understand that. There were franchisees, just like McDonald's franchisees owns different locations. But the franchisees didn't make anything. They outsourced it to a whole bunch of production centers within the network. So me just explaining that took me 5 days to understand. That's how much I didn't know business. But what I got from the year and a half I was there was, one, I could make a ton of mistakes. I worked exclusively, my internal clients were exclusively the founders, the VPs, the CEO, and all of the C-suite. I got to travel to every conference. Anytime they brought in an expert speaker or they brought in a trainer for like a 3-day sales training or what have you, I recorded the training. I edited the training for several weeks after that, and I made sure that it made sense for my audience. And so it was the greatest crash course in the early days of marketing, of segmentation, of strategy. Like, I wish that I had stayed there longer, because looking back, when you are young and you can work in an entrepreneurial organization where they basically say, hey, it's your job to go out there and just learn a bunch of stuff and make sure that you can figure out a way to explain it to others. Again, I'm 22. I'm 23. I went to film school, right? That was the foundation for me learning a lot of things. And in the business side, it did not prepare me for when I stepped out and started my own business. That was a train wreck.
Well, it usually is in the beginning, right? So we're hearing your off shift moment, because I hear that's the thing. It's like when I'm gathering this whole podcast. It's like, when was that off shift that sucks versus great moment? I'm hearing it, right? It's the moment that you go, okay, I got to find this, and you start leaning into it. I'm watching just started this show called Suits. You ever heard of it?
Yeah. It was shot in Toronto.
Really?
Actually, one of my entrepreneur friends owns a custom bespoke tailor shop, and he did all of the suits for that.
That's super
for that show.
cool. Was it the one? I've only watched the first episode, which is like an hour 20. It's like,
all of the wardrobe, all of the guys wearing nice suits in suits was done by one of my friends.
So there's a part in the beginning. I'm only in the beginning of 8 seasons, and I started going, I shouldn't do this because now I have no life. But it's in the beginning. There's a situation where this guy, he's about to quit. So if it's a spoiler for you guys, I'm sorry, but I'm not at the same time. It's 8 seasons.
Spoiler on a show that's been around for 14 years or something.
Folks. And in the beginning, he goes, hey, I'm going to be going to, anyways, he's going to do this little thing. And so he finds in a situation where it's hard, or some woman wants to, testify, not testify. And he goes, I'm out of here. So he decides kind of to quit. And the guy stops him at the end of his exit out of the building. And he kind of gives him this little talk. And the talk's essentially about, hey, listen, you can lean in, you can do this, or you can run back off to your life. Keep the same, exit strategy you've had in this briefcase the whole time. That's not a spoiler. And he goes, if I see you on Monday, I'll know you're still here. And it's kind of that situation where, like, you can lean in and do the hard stuff, or go back to what you knew, which you didn't like in the first place. So I'm kind of hearing that. You're like, well, I'm in this situation. I got to learn. You leaned in. A lot of people lean out. What do you think's unique about you that decided to make you lean back in and like take on this task? Because you could have just like walked away and go, I'm not a salesperson. I went to film school, right? And I think that's what a lot of people's problems are, is they see situations, go, I'm not that. And so because they're not that, they don't become that.
So in terms of in high school, I mean, there's a whole bunch of these moments, but I just didn't know who I was or what I wanted to do. And I just wanted to be really, really good at something. Like I wanted to be the thing where I could be excellent. I could be extraordinary at something. And what really happened with the whole architecture and engineering side was I just got scared, right? Like I wanted to be excellent and extraordinary at something. Oh man, it's going to take 10 years to establish myself, to go through this school. Like I wanted to go to the very best university for engineering. And then I wanted from there to spend, to get my master's in architecture, and then spend 2 years apprenticing and then get my stamp, because that is what the very best people do. And then it got like really scary and hard because I had built this mountain for myself. And when I started doing sales, it just was boring. And I had to ask myself, I remember there was a moment where I was in this role for 9 months. And I went, for the last 9 months, now keep in mind, I'm like 21 or 22. I'm super young, but I go, in the last 9 months, I haven't used any of my film school background. My life is slipping away. I was trained in film and I'm not using any of it. And that's what scared me enough to get this job at this franchise. And then when I got into the franchise, I just really started to love the game. love the game of being able to figure out and connect dots between, okay, this is what my internal client, my colleague, whatever, this is the person asking for the project. They want this outcome to happen. Now, what needs to happen to make it happen? Because I don't have a team, I don't have budget, I don't have resources. I was like literally handed a cheap old camera and a computer without any software, and I had no budget and no team and no resources, but I had to try and figure out how to make whatever they were asking for.
It.
And so it was this game of like, well, am I meeting their expectations? I wasn't very good. I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't know what they expected. And so out of fear, I actually developed this huge onboarding process that literally is the thing that made our company work for that took us to $1 million company when I started my company. It was because I got so good at pulling a brief out of people just because I was terrified that they would ask for something. I would run off and make something. I would show it to them and they'd go, what the fuck is this? What did you just do? Are you an idiot? And that fear of presenting back to someone something just so wrong, so off base, forced me to get really good at trying to figure out what the hell people wanted and what they need and what will actually help them. And I don't think, and of course, over the years, again, the 3,000 projects and 300 clients and all this stuff, this is what I've gotten really good at.
I could tell. I mean, it's obviously, you guys, and we know each other. So this discussion is, we've had some of these, not all of it, which is cool. I'm getting to hear new things as well. But I think that's kind of the thing that I had to pull from these episodes, that I'm hearing the windows of, looking into the windows of what took place to get you to where you're at. I think that's kind of the things people don't always see. They see someone on the screen or doing well, and I got these numbers and accolades, but you guys don't know behind the scenes. You don't know that someone was fearful of something, that somebody had to do something they weren't comfortable with, they had to try something new. Now, while we do know, we don't know. You don't know, intimately, and so we're here now, which is awesome. So let's just fast forward. I think I'd love to get to the point of what you do now, because I get a connection point as to how we got here, right? Obviously, there's a bunch of intricacies and in-betweens in life and everything, but let's get to the good stuff, right? So you've now progressed through, you get this company built. Now, I know that there was the company you run now was not the company you were running 6 months ago, right? It's been some nuance, some buildup. Do you mind teaching us what that company was, what you're doing now, and what made you jump to this or transition to this?
Yeah. What a huge moment I think we all had a few years ago when the pandemic hit. Now, when the pandemic hit, I had 24 full-time staff, $2 million in annual revenue, and I was burnt out. And I was 13, 14 years into the career, super burnt out. And so we lost 70% of our revenue on March 12th, 2020. I think anyone who's in business, anyone who was in a career was adjusted, but I could not carry on. 70% of our revenue disappeared. And so it forced us to ask a few really hard questions, but it also gave me permission to be able to make changes that I knew I wanted to make in the business. So through 2020 and even 2021, we cut a lot of our services as our team, found other jobs. We didn't replace the team members. We had to let a few people go, unfortunately, and we had to kind of restructure. And so I found myself at a point where I was asking, is this what I want to do? Do I want to do this? Because ultimately, my job as an agency owner, my job as someone who works with B2B entrepreneurs who run service-based businesses, the job as the leader of my team is to basically direct people with what the right thing is to do, right? In a world where you can be anyone and you can look any way and you can say anything to any audience on any platform, it's overwhelming, right? There's never enough time. There's never enough budget. You go to a conference and they say, do this. And then you're on TikTok and it's all strategy. But in a world where you could do anything and be anyone, what is the right play? Where is the most effective use of our spend? Where should we be focusing our efforts when they're limited? And I was the guy responsible for figuring that out for each one of our clients. And that was a lot of pressure. And I didn't realize I was getting burnt out. And so the gap, the break actually gave me the chance to say, okay, let's ignore all of the different platforms and all of the different ways we can help people. And let's just I asked myself, what do I love? And I love working with entrepreneurs. And what are we really good at? Well, we are really good at telling people in a world where they can be anything and do anything what the right thing is to say. And do we have a process that really works? Why did people Why did all of those people come and work with us year after year after year? Why did they pick us? Well, our process is really, really effective. And by just asking those three simple questions, it forced me to go like, okay, cool. I don't want to give this up. This is something I love. I love it. I love working with entrepreneurs. I love helping them. And so the new agency, Sales Loop, is the old agency, Phantom Media, but it's refined. It is only working with B2B service-based businesses, 7 or 8 figures, usually owner managed. But we've gotten rid of a lot of that sounds terrible. We've stopped working with a lot of other types of clients. And so Sales Loop, the agency that I have today, we have narrowed the things we do. We've narrowed the people we work with. We focused on the thing that makes us, what I kind of say, like God level, like we are better at this than anything else. And you know what? It's so much fun. Business can be so much fun when you're not constantly feeling overwhelmed or inadequate or having imposter syndrome or dealing with a team that's making mistakes. Like it can be a lot of fun.
100% agree. I think that's the kind of fun thing for me. Is like we have mistakes as part of the process, but I think like our team had a mistake today. We're like, we have this webinar going on later, and I'm waking up to emails like, hey, the date's wrong, or this is weird, or why is this funny? This is fishy. I don't know if you're legit. I'm like, golly. And so I go, it's like, oh, an email went out with the wrong date. And it's like, but you navigate it. And at the end of the day, you fix it. And it's like, you're part of a team. It's fun. But I think the cool thing for me is like you're talking to, you get to actually experience something that is fun and unique and different that you create. I think it's a fun thing when you've created it inside of your brain. Like there's something about it that makes it more fun and engaging. But I think I like this idea of the fact that you stay in the pocket, do something you do well, found the thing that's expertly yours. What about the person who hasn't found that yet or doesn't know how to find it? I think that's a thing where people go, I know I'm meant for something, but I don't know how to find it, right? You did it by, I don't want to say happenstance, but like necessity. This is the thing I do and I got great. I built a business. And you're like, hey, I want to try this new thing. And we go here. This is what we're phenomenal at.
But everyone does it by happenstance.
Okay. Unpack that.
So I think it's a myth to think that you can engineer this. Okay. So if we were to look back on our lives and you think of all the right turns you can make, the left turns you can make, the decisions that you've made that were really hard for you or the ones that you don't even think about. There's like these sliding doors, like that old Gwyneth Paltrow movie, right? There's all these different paths that if you had just made different decisions could have led you to a totally different place. But when you look back, you end up connecting these dots. So for me, I go like, okay, I'm from a family of builders. You asked earlier if I have entrepreneurs in my family. I'm actually a 5th generation entrepreneur. And so my mom, growing up, ran a small business. My grandfather built a very large business. His dad ran, a farm back in, because now we're going back, right? Like to my great grandfather, but he was a horse trader in the Baltic area, and his father ran a tannery. Okay. Like so now we're going back to like the 1870s, right? Like and so okay, so there's this entrepreneur thing in my ecosystem, and that's cool. But I wanted to be an architect. Yeah. And then I went to film school, and then I worked in sales, and then I worked for a franchise, and then I made videos, and then I started an agency. And like all these things don't seem to connect. And yet when I look back and I go, well, what makes me me and what is it that I love? I can pull out of these moments all these little things and connect all these little dots when I look backwards. And yet when I look forwards, it's fuzzy. There's uncertainty. I have no idea what's in front of me. But I want to try and control every step. I don't know about you, but I want to try and control every step. If I want to make sure that everything works out in the future. And so I narrow the number of things I try. I narrow my experiences. I set a clear goal and I work towards that goal, but I don't allow for the little weird things that happen in life to lead wherever they lead. Okay. And so if you're someone who is earlier in your life or you're struggling with, like, I just haven't found that thing that makes me me, you have to understand that it will be due to happenstance. So, Anthony, because we talk about this a lot, I love biographies. Yeah. So, Arnold Schwarzenegger, if you've watched his film, his new series on Netflix, or if you've read his book, which I love, Total Recall from 2012, he just wanted to get out of Austria. He wanted to go to America and he wanted to be famous. Now he found bodybuilding. Bodybuilding took him to Germany. Bodybuilding then took him to the UK, and from the UK to America. Now, that bodybuilding allowed him to then start some business practices, get into the right room, get around the right people, It got him some press. He started investing in real estate. He started building up this real estate portfolio so he didn't have to worry about money. And then somehow through that, he got connected to film and to television. He never thought about being an actor. But then suddenly he's like, oh, there's this opportunity to act. And because of the bodybuilding, because he was great at something, he was able to then continue to pursue, and he went into being acting, and then from acting to politics, and from politics to more business, and right, like, but it all is because he was good at something. Michael Jordan, right? The Last Dance. You and I talk about Jordan a lot, right? In The Last Dance, he talks about the fact that it's like, listen, yeah, I got Nike sponsorship, but I wanted Adidas. I got McDonald's sponsorship. I got all of these sponsors. I made all of this money, but it didn't come just because I was a cool guy or I was liked. It came because I delivered the results on the floor, because I played the game. And so Jordan was amazing at basketball, and that led to other things. And so I think often the challenge is either one, we don't recognize what we are truly gifted at because it comes so naturally to us, we ignore it.
I agree.
It's just we can't even see how amazing we are because it's like it comes naturally to us. Like, and so we need to realize that we have certain gifts, we have certain skills, and there's value to them. And then the second thing is we need to be good enough at something to be great, right? Like if you were not a great podcaster or a great speaker, you would not have a social following. No one would be listening to this to you. No one would be buying your courses. No one would be hiring you to be a coach. And that's cool, but you're also leveraging the fact that you were a football player.
Right.
So you use the football to start the gyms. You use the gyms to start the speaking. You know what I mean? Like all of this stuff comes from somewhere. So I would just say, what do you want to be amazing at, extraordinary at? And what do you love and what comes naturally to you? And then how can you spend the next few years getting so good at that that's the starting point that leads to more opportunities, and don't try to control those opportunities.
I like that. It's all doors that open up that you didn't know existed when you were starting out. It's, football led to me opening a gym. Gym opened up the door for me to go talk and speak about it. And then talking and speaking became an opportunity to know existed that turned into consulting in different areas. And the consulting from fitness turned into consulting for life. And it just opened up one of these doors, and it's funny. It's like different forks, but you wouldn't have actually been presented with the fork unless you chose a fork and walked down that pathway. And so the more you do that, the more you find out. And I think there's also a part of us that goes, well, I'm good in this area. I've never done that thing. I'll never be good there. And I go, no, it's not that you're good here. You have these human traits that are expressing here and are valuable here. But those human traits can be expressed somewhere else and be valuable there also. But you have to go and actually walk down that path. And so I like how you're unfolding that, because that is the truth. I think that's what people, I want to wake up and know I'm supposed to do on the planet right now. You have to earn that. Like, it's not just handed to you. You have to go and do actual work to figure out what that thing is. And you're right. Sometimes you can't see it.
Can I illustrate this point perfectly? So I talked about the fact that, 2020, 2021, I was like, the business was winding down and I was unsure what to do. Now, I have been podcasting since I think 2014. And I love podcasting. I love connecting like this. I love being on stage. We met at an event. I love being out there and doing that kind of stuff. And so I decided there was this point where I was like, well, I have these podcasts. Maybe I don't want to be an agency owner anymore. Maybe I don't want to be an entrepreneur. Maybe I want to be a podcast host full time. Maybe I want to start a publication. Like maybe I want to do something around this. And I started going out to these events. And when I would be in an entrepreneur mastermind or in a room, and I introduced myself as a podcast host or an MC or someone who could help at events, there was like this, it was like this moment of like people being like, oh, okay. Like zero credibility, zero interest. Now I was coming in confident. I was coming in happy. I can add value if people would listen to me. No one seemed to care. Like maybe I'm in the wrong room, but no one seemed to care. And then as soon as I was like really tired of that, I'm like, I'm just going to go back to the fact that I'm an entrepreneur and I'm super passionate about marketing. I don't know if my energy shifted or what it was, but suddenly it's like, oh wait, you've run a multi-million-dollar business for years. You've built up a team. Oh, you've done this before. You've worked on that many projects. Like I listed off a whole bunch of projects and a whole bunch of things. And it's like, suddenly now I'm someone who's done something. Nothing about me has changed, but the people I was speaking to respect the fact that I built a business, that I could build another business, that I've helped other people.
That's, I think, that's a big piece of it.
They didn't seem to respect the fact that I was a podcaster in a sea of podcasters. Like it seemed to them where they're like, well, anyone could be a podcaster.
I agree.
And I'd be like, no, but I'm a really good podcaster, right? Doesn't
Yeah,
help.
no, I get it. I think there's like for me, I walk around my town and people ask, "What do you do for a living?" I talk for a living. What do you? I speak. Oh, and they look at you and they go, "I just like a guy that goes to high schools and motivates." And like, okay, fun, bud, like real job. And I explain, no, I actually just got back from consulting 25 Amazon executives, and then I got back from a speech where I talked to 1,500 people. I make in a month what some people make in a year, not from a stance of like, look at me, I'm making a bunch of money, but I have a value to what it is I do. I'm not the Joe Blow guy, and they, oh, really? Who? Well, tell me more. And then it opens up these doors. But you're right. Sometimes it is a frame and it's different, but you don't get those unless you poke in to areas that are super uncomfortable. You think the first time I presented to Amazon, I went like, hey guys, pay me $100,000 to do this. They were like, it wasn't hard for me. Like that's a,
Do you not have an NDA with Amazon? Like you're just throwing this out
there?
there?
Because at the end of the day, I have numbers. If you went to go say, what is a consult? Because there's levels of what I do and how, right? I'm not telling proprietary information, It's like I'm saying, hey guys, we went in the room and they developed this kind of content. No, I'm just saying when I go in, there's a rate at which it costs to work with me and to work with their teams to help them. Because you got to realize when I'm going in, it's not just a group of these people and that's it. Like they disseminate to thousands of people within their teams. And so what I'm doing to help this person, it helps the entire company make billions of dollars. So it's not like,
Ooh, I love it. We're getting into value-based pricing now. We can have a whole conversation about that.
It's a whole, but that's when people ask me, well, why do they pay you? Because my fee for getting paid for speaking is $25,000. People go, how would they pay you $25,000? They get anybody. I go, yeah, but not anybody gets a room of 1,500 people to do the next thing they need to make the company bottom line more money. Whether it's better communication skills, taking on a new initiative, being better at sales, whatever it is, the things that I teach are takeaways, right? But that's something that was developed from football, from a gym, from podcasting, right? These are little nuanced nuggets of life that I learned to present very well on stage and teach as a process. But that's the journey for everybody, especially in the entrepreneurial space. Even if you're an employee, you still got to go and learn and develop and be of value to the company in some manner. So the things we're talking to aren't just reserved for people that are in business, although it's helping them.
I think employees can, so it's funny because like if someone, if Tony were to come to you, Tony Robbins were to come to you, and Tony Robbins, and he's part of your networking group. If he were to come to you and say, Trucks, man, I really need your help with my business, you'd be like, you're Tony Robbins. Like we might be talking about an incremental improvement, like a very like so much work for such a small improvement. Now I'm not talking down to you. I'm just saying he's Tony Robbins, right? Now, if someone is stuck 15 years in the past in their business and they're just really struggling and they're holding on and they meet you, like you are going to drive so much value so quickly. So we know that our value prop kind of changes depending on who we're connecting with. But do you do editing?
Oh, no. I mean, we could let it rock. You want to change something?
No, I just forgot my train of thought mid-sentence. I got so caught up in Tony.
Listen to how our brains work. I do it all the time. And I'll just go like, hey, man, can you tell me what the question was again? That's fine. I don't like to edit because I think this is a part of the fun part of it. But it happens. I'll be on conversations. I'll talk.
Oh, if people are listening to this, then I'm blushing because this is like a rookie mistake mid thought to just have your whole head blank.
If I had a long day and people ask me a question, I'll go off at a tangent and I'll realize I don't even know what the question was in the beginning. So I'll just go now and I'll ask them, hey, I lost my train of thought. Can you tell me what the heck you asked a moment ago? And like, oh yeah.
Yeah. So what were we talking about before I started talking about Tony? And I'm so happy that I tied it back
of like the value and how you bring it through different levels and the idea of like I went to Tony and there's a value proposition.
Oh yes, employees. Back to employees. So this is actually really key because I think most entrepreneurs, entrepreneurship forces you to have to get better all the time because it's you and it's super painful and it's your money and it's your risk. But if we talk about employees, if you are an employee at a company, if you're an employee at an organization, if you're a contractor, if you're a freelancer, you can actually see the greatest benefits from having a better understanding of who you are and your value and what makes you unique. Like all the stuff that you just said, Trucks, about it comes from football and it comes from running the gym and it comes from speaking on stage and all these little bits. Being able to be an employee and go like, this is my superpower. This is my purpose. This is my why. This is the number one value driver I bring to the organization. And this is my attitude and this is how I show up and this is my personality and this is how I want to present myself and all that stuff. I don't want to say go out and create a personal brand, but nobody else is doing that in your company. Like people are not thinking as strategically as a company owner or a salesperson would. And so if you are, an administrative assistant or if you're a social media marketing manager or what have you, then the amount of, we call it like managing up, the amount of work you can do to make sure that you show up a certain way, giving people a certain vibe, a certain feeling, adding value in a certain way, and understanding what makes you unique will give you so much negotiating power, not only within your own company, because you can be very clear about that, but it'll also give you enough confidence to step out if you need to, because you know that you are the product. You are the asset. You are the thing that is continually improving and continually getting better. And 5 years or 10 years or 15 years down the line, truthfully, your reputation and the value you've driven and the work that you do in your skill sets is like the thing you're bringing with you from company to company to company. And so I would totally recommend that if you're an employee or contractor that you focus on.
I agree. I couldn't have said it better, man. I think that's what it is we don't realize that just because we're not the one running the business doesn't mean we're not of value to the business. And if you do improve yourself, you improve your value, you can increase your pay. So let's say we take it from employee standpoint to business owner, which is who you are and what you do. You have obviously taken the gold of what you do, right? The God level thing you said earlier, that you're phenomenal at, and you've built this company called SalesLoop. And so I would love people, just so you guys know as a sidebar too, what Mark does is stuff that individuals talk to, but he actually does at a level. It's like process driven, structural. He really does it, right? It's not, some people just go like, you could do this, it's possible. And I think they don't actually know how, they just know it's possible. And if you were to actually ask them to do it, they may not be able to, or they take a little bit to figure it out. Whereas you could ask him to create stuff. He'll spit out reports of like 73 things that you don't even know what the hell they do or how they work, but he could do it. And he's since transitioned this company.
Okay, so you're saying this. Should we disclose the fact that we've worked together a little bit, or
the
no?
whole thing you guys see, dark work? Yeah, I was going there. I promise I was heading there.
Oh, okay. I didn't know if we were going to keep that secret.
Not a secret, bro. I think it's the best part about all this stuff, which is why I bring people that I like on the podcast is when they can do great things that I know the world needs to know about. Like I am sitting here right now looking at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 logos of dark work. 9, 10. They're in my, I'm telling you, they're all over my place. But this logo means nothing without it actually having a base behind it. Understanding who I'm talking to, how I can actually create a business from this all. Because an idea is an idea, but it's of no use if it's not packaged properly. You could say, hey, it's an amazing hamburger, but unless you have a business that says, hey, this hamburger has the bun and the cheese and stuff, and it's McDonald's, there's no value to the hamburger, right? So essentially, Mark helps create the whole process and did this for dark work for us. And so it's from a company called SalesLoop. And I'd love for you to kind of dive into how you took all these pieces, put them together, what you created, and who it's really for.
Yeah. Well, thank you. So let me take a step back. And so really, we only help with a few real challenges that businesses have. And so ultimately, if you are struggling with sales, you need more people to know you, you need more people to trust you, and you need more people to choose you over the competition. You need people to know you, trust you, and choose you over the competition. Now, there are 4 real challenges that keep businesses. So no matter the business size, whether you're just starting or you're the biggest company in the world, we all face these kind of challenges. Normally, a message that a company will put out, so a sales message, a written message, a social post, a brand, whatever it is, you're trying to sell something, you're trying to generate interest. You're trying to get more people to know you, trust you, and choose you. Usually these messages are really confusing or they're really generic. And so your prospects or your prospective customers, even the very best customers, they just don't understand what you do or they don't value what you do. You haven't built up any demand. Number 2, there's really no damn good reason to pick you over your competition. And there has to be a damn good reason. It's not enough to be as good as everyone else, because if you're as good as everyone else, there's no reason to pick you, right? It's chance, and you can't leave it to chance. The third thing is most businesses do not have a clear idea of their customers' buying journey. So they may have a pretty good idea of like which platforms work and what converts and stats and all that stuff, but they're thinking in terms of like, how do I get my message in front of the right people? But they're ignoring what about every step before your prospect or customer ever contacts you or comes in touch with your brand, and what happens after they're done working with you? Because we are, no matter how much we do, we're only a small slice of someone's life or a company's life or value or whatever it is. So we need to understand the entire buying journey. And then lastly, and this is the one that I love the most, is in most cases, brands do not share how awesome people really are. So you can't charge what you're really worth.
They say when it's bad though, right? They tell you if it's wrong. Like, oh, this person messed up.
Oh, yeah. No. Yeah. But there's a reason you can charge $100,000 to Amazon. Because your personality and your experience and your voice and the clips you put out and everything, like it shows how badass you are. And now you can charge what you're really worth. Now, all of these things actually just point towards the real problem, the biggest problem every business faces, which is that time and money and potential is wasted. It's completely wasted because the wrong messages are being sent to the wrong people at the wrong times. That's what we fix for people.
And I would agree on what we do.
We figure out what the right message is. We figure out who the right people are. And we figure out how to get that message in front of people. So that way we can just connect those dots.
And that is as simple as it sounds, folks. That's the power. Because I find people have great, like I work with individuals at different times, different levels. They're speaking, coaching, business, right? And they do have this amazing message, but they want to give it to everybody. And I go, well, if you give it to everybody, then the person really needs it doesn't know. So you may spend all these years, like Einstein says, if you judge a fish by its ability to climb a tree, it'll spend its entire life thinking it's stupid. So a lot of people are here with this message for fish, but they're worried about the guy in the tree. And it's like, that's not for you. So if you don't give it there, it doesn't help. And then if you know who it is and you don't properly put it together, then you lose them. When you start with people, where do you typically see the biggest issue for them? Because that's the thing that I've noticed. Do you see something different than what I see of their capabilities to do it, but not having those things? And what would it look like at each step for someone to go like, well, which one is my issue?
Yeah, so our process starts with what we call the you, and what we really want to understand is what makes your business or your service or your product or the leadership or the people behind it, like what is the magic? What's the mojo? What's the secret sauce? What is the thing? And often we're just acting as a filter. So almost every business owner has the answers, but the answers are surrounded by 100 answers. And so if I were to ask you, who's your most valuable client and why do they pick you? You're going to give me 5, 10, 15, 20, 30 different things. You're going to talk and talk and talk and talk and talk. And somewhere in that talk is like that magic thing, which is like the perfect thing to say. And if I could just pluck it out and ignore all the rambling and get rid of all the fluff that doesn't matter, or just take that perfect thing because you are using inside language. Right? You're using the language you use in your industry. You're using the language you use for your operations or your team. And this is especially challenging if you come from a finance or operations background as an entrepreneur. If you come from a process or engineering background, good luck, right? Like if you come from a sales and marketing background, then chances are you already know how to select the right thing and tailor it for the right audience. But we work with a lot of really successful, conservative companies, or even they would never consider themselves conservative, but I use that term meaning an $80 million manufacturing company, right? It's in a pretty conservative industry. And so if you go to most manufacturers, they will say, we make stuff and we build stuff, but that's not what you do. You don't do that at all. And so all we're trying to do is start with what makes you unique, what makes you different, how do you think, what are your experiences, what have you learned the hard way, what would you never do again, what do you stand for, what do you fight against? I want to know all of that stuff, because in there is something that makes you and your company and your brand unique. Now, the second step is if we have a certain, and the reason why we're called Sales Loop is a lot of people will do branding, but our branding is specifically tied to effective sales strategies. Okay. So I want to close the loop. So I don't want to design a brand for you that makes you, it's great if it makes you feel good. It's great if it makes you look good, all of that stuff. But who are we selling to and how will they buy? Yeah. So once we narrow those decisions, like what are our advertising strategies? What's our marketing strategies? What's our go-to-market strategy? How will we find these people? Where will they be? What platforms will they be on? What are their preconceived notions? What are their fears, their desires? What are the things they're afraid of? How do they think? What type of terminology do they use? How well educated are they? Are they problem aware or solution aware? Like, let's figure all that out. And once we figure that out, people tell us what they want. And now if we can connect the dot between all of the things that make you awesome, and we can wrap it in a message that your targets want to hear, well, it's like giving candy to a baby.
Perfect. At that point. It's all buttoned up properly. It's a beautiful present and they're looking forward to unwrapping.
And then the last step is we do competitive analysis, because now you're going to share this message in the market, right? Like it's never in a vacuum. You're always going to be up against other people. And we often think of competition as like the person down the street who's pitching the same thing we're pitching, or there's the player in our market. But the competition can be anyone who takes away your customer's disposable income or budget, or scares them, or what have you. So what we do is we look at the market now and we say, okay, if we know what makes you awesome and we know what your best customers want to hear, how do we make sure we do this in a way that stands out? That if we're going into a recession and people are extremely nervous, how do we account for that? If we're on a boom cycle, or if we're going into a really niche industry with a new competitor that's just come up and we're losing market share, how do we account for that? Like, just how do we count for the room we're walking into? You're a speaker. You tailor your message for the room you're walking into, right? And you're doing that because you know that if you're at a conference, there might have been 5 or 10 speakers in front of you and 5 or 10 speakers after you. They're not your competition, but you're sharing your message amongst a sea of other people. And you want to stand out. You want to make an impact. You want to be different. And so that is what we do. And there's a whole bunch of other steps. We can talk about the 8 weeks and we can talk about all this other stuff. But in essence, we help you figure out what makes you awesome so you can double down on it. We do a ton of market research that's data-driven, so that way we can figure out who your targets are and what they care about. We do competitive analysis to determine how to stand out and be different. And we wrap this all in behavioral psychology to make sure that you are comfortable with these changes and they're true to you.
I like it, man. And so you guys know from personal experience, this is what we do. This is what we did with Dark Work, right? The thing for me is I had this idea and this message, but I could easily butcher it, right? That's the thing, is I think that was one of the things that was a gift for me when I found it. I found it later on in life when I'd gone through enough business information and experience to know that this is something that's good. The worst thing I can do is take it to the market incorrectly. That's what would be the worst for it. And so, and I'm not saying I'm perfect. I'll tell Mark things and he goes, "Don't do that. Let me do it for you." Like, he still does that. And there's little things I'm like, "I just got to get it done." He's like, "You gonna mess it up." And so, like, even little nuanced pieces of it. But the good thing is when you have something that you feel powerfully, strong about, you want to make sure people are in the loop that can help you put it out to the world properly. And Mark's the guy to do that. So if you guys are curious about that, we're coming to the back end. I didn't realize how fast the time went, dude. We have a ability to do that. We can talk for a lot of time and it feels like 5 minutes, which is it's a blessing to have people in your life you could do that with. So let's do this. Where can people find you is the first question. I'll ask you the second one in a moment.
Perfect. So if you want to know more about the agency, go to salesloopbrand.com. If you want to connect with me one-on-one, you can just drop me a DM on Instagram. My handle is @mark.drager.
And here's a final question. You're going to love this one. What promise did God or the Creator make to the world when they created you?
Wow. I could not confidently answer that. I'm just like,
It's okay.
Yeah.
Do it
I don't know. You would have to ask other people in my life. I don't
That's
know.
all right. What would you unconfidently say?
I'm really proud of the fact that I spent the last few years treating my kids like my employees, meaning, I spent a lot of time and effort trying to pour into my staff to coach them and to allow them to grow and be unique and explore things and try things. And I had this point like 2 years ago, I was like, why am I not doing this for my kids?
Yeah.
Right. And so like I spend a lot of time actively coaching, and I know you do as well with your sons and daughter. And it's just like I am really, really proud at that. So I guess honestly, the uncomfortable thing for me to say is my energy and my personality is the thing I know I bring to every single room. I'm really curious. I usually bring a lot of energy. I'm boisterous. I'm outgoing, and people seem to dig that and love it. And so I should not be humble. I should just own it and say, you know what? I will not be humble. I will own it and say that it's actually my energy.
It. See, we got to it. That's the most Canadian answer I've ever had in that one. 300, almost 400.
Apologizing halfway through and reframing.
It's all part of the process. Man, awesome. I appreciate you coming on. Those of you who are here, I appreciate you joining. If you yourself got something from this, even if it's a single nugget, use that thing. I think that all of us as humans have information floating around that is unacted on that can actually answer a lot of questions we do have and also provide the success we're looking for. 2, if you know someone who needs to hear this, share the episode. You have the link, click the share button. You have their details of contact. Just send the thing to their inbox or to their phone. Who knows? Because you never know what single statement or nugget can open up their doors of life to be amazing. So do that. Outside of that, as always, make sure you make the most of your Shift moments. You can make shift happen. Go to salesloopbrand.com. It's Anthony Trucks and Mark Drager signing off.
Hey, thank you for tuning into the Shift podcast. I pray that we gave something amazing to your life. And if you found this episode served you in some way, I would love if you could share it with people you know, people you love, as well as your community, because you never know who needs that simple little seed that can grow into something amazing for their life. And the actual training doesn't stop here. If you want your free copy of the show notes sent to you after every episode so you can get the major points consolidated down, simply go to textanthony.com and message the word notes. Till next time, make shift happen.